If your information is public and it's out there in the public domain, be that cyber or billboards or wherever,
right,
it can be stolen and it can be
correct.
used.
And it will, not that it can be, it will be.
This all sounds incredibly serious. So if you're a financial institution, what can you do to protect yourself?
We're only as secure as the people around us. We're only as secure as the social network and the people that is on our social sphere. So as organizations, what we really need to do is beyond our borders, beyond our perimeters of the organizations, we need to actually basically make sure that we not only secure the systems, but we also combine and make sure that the awareness is in people. So this is no longer, it's not a technology issue anymore. It's a combination of people and technology. So in many cases, you need to make sure that your people and your supply chain, your vendors you deal with, as well as your technology is updated and patched. Those are the things you need to be kind of going beyond traditional methods rather than what we've been doing in the past.
And how are financial institutions doing? Are they doing a good job of this, or is there still work to be done?
I think financial institutions are going to do a good job for themselves. They are actually doing a lot of, let's say, analytical. They're doing a lot more automation. They are spending money in machine learning. They're spending money investing in big data analytics. So what you're finding is that from a cyber criminal perspective, if I'm going to target a bank, what's probably happening is that you're finding that the detection within the banks and financial institutions is becoming faster. They're being able to find the instance much faster. It doesn't mean to say that the incident is actually less or less costly to the institute, but it does mean that the dwell time is significantly reducing, which does have an impact on cost. So yes, financial institutions are kind of getting a step ahead, but in most cases they're doing security for themselves, but not so much security for their customers.
That's a very good point. And when I hear all of that, it's frightening. There's a lot of risks out there. There's a lot of threats. So what does the individual do? What can I do to better protect myself?
I think the first thing that you need to do is you really need to first become a bit more aware about basically what security is. This is one of the first things, is that by nature is being able to, just like when you're walking down a street, you kind of look around, you're cautious, you're observing. And sometimes what happens is when you do things repetitive, we become complacent. And it's the same thing in computers. When you look at 1,000 emails, the 1,001 email comes in, you kind of just have this automation mode, rather than actually taking things a bit more cautious and looking at everything a bit more, any more kind of uniqueness and more, I guess, kind of suspicious. So being always suspicious about everything is one of the first things. The next area is really making sure, always think twice about clicking on something.
Don't click links on emails that you don't know. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. You should always look at the senders.
Yeah.
You can hover your mouse over the to inbox, and you can see if it's actually the email address that you're looking for. I don't know if you followed how the DNC got hacked.
No. How did that happen?
It's called spear phishing. Mm-hmm. So what they did was they spoofed a reset my password Gmail looking email. So I'm sure you've received an email that says, oh, I'd like to reset my password from Google or whatever. What happened was the hackers, they made their emails look just like those. And they actually changed the alias of the email to look like it came from Google. So when you look at it, looks like a Google email, even says it's a Google email. But if you hover over your mouse over the to address or the from address, you'll notice that it'll say some other website other than Google. And so when in doubt, delete.
Delete.
Yeah, just delete it. Another thing to consider is the technology being used when you do a transaction. A lot of times you'll see, like when you're filling out credit card information, you'll say powered by something, secure anywhere or whatever. You want to use reputable sites because they are storing your data and they are liable for that. A lot of times what you see today, especially with what's been happening in today's world, you'll enter your credit card information, you'll get a product, not think anything of it, and not realize that that company has been holding your data. And then 6 months later, they get hacked. So just keep these things in mind as you shop online.
Someone actually duplicated my debit card and was using it to make purchases online and in person. and drained my bank account to about negative $200.
Were it my debit card, it would have been a lot harder to get the funds back. It might not have been guaranteed. I would have been out that $400 for the time period. It made me realize that it was the lesser of two evils to have it on a credit card.
The credit card versus the debit card. Why would anyone use a debit card for anything beyond accessing an ATM? This sounds like a tremendous amount of risk that you're opening yourself up to.
From a consumer perspective, there are valid uses of a debit card. But if we talk about it from a fraud perspective, there is really no valid use, if you're trying to protect yourself from fraud, of a debit card for a debit transaction, as opposed to having a card which could be used as the debit device, but you're only using, and this is how all banks do it, you're only using as an ATM card or as a point of validation if you ever walk into a branch location.
What are some tips that you would have for somebody that uses a debit card? Should they put all of their money in their checking accounts, or should they put it into a savings and allocate money to their checking account? I'm just trying to think about ways that people can prevent the fraud from impacting their cash.
Number one, choose a PIN that is not your normal PIN on everything else. Make sure it's something separate and net new. Not 111, not 1234, not 000, and not 98765. Right? All of these have been guessed. They're all standard, out there. Second, only use a debit card at a location that you know is secure. And I say, well, I have no idea what that means.
Right. How do I know what is a secure location?
In recent years, really from about 2009 until present, credit card skimming, well, we'll actually say point of sale skimming has become huge in Europe as well as in the US. Now, what is that?
So I was getting on the train. I'm at 14th Street, heading to Williamsburg, get off the Bedford stop. And there was a deli about a block away from the stop. I think it was on North 7th. And there's an ATM machine that's literally public facing. So it's just those ATM machines that they're out in the street. And I don't even think the deli owner knows about it, or it might be privately owned or whatever. And I go to it and I insert my card and I go to withdraw some money. When I pulled the card out, now this was one of those ones where you put the card in and you pull it out right away. When I pull the card out, I noticed that the ATM machine seemed to move.
Jeez.
Yeah, so I pulled, I was like, okay. It looked like the face of the ATM machine was moving. So I pulled the whole thing, and it was literally an entire face of an ATM. Looked no different than the ATM that was behind it. It was just basically clipped and placed on top. And I pulled it out, and I realized that this was a skimming device. So it basically just copied my information. I was like, all right, well, that's gone.
It's something that's placed in between your actual card, whether you're dipping it or swiping it, and the end device that captures the information on the card and is able to read it. And then separately, either through technology of a PIN pad overlay, capture when you're entering your PIN, or a separate camera, capture your keystrokes, 1, 2, 3, 4, or I did a great password, 1593. Shoot, I got to change mine now, but give the thing a jiggle, pull up on it. Anything that's attached with sticky side tape, anything that looks additional on the outside of the device, those are going to be easy signs of don't use it.
As we've recorded this season of Focus on FinTech, we've actually spoken with a number of individuals that have been victims of cyber crimes, of financial crimes. They've had identities stolen or credit card information stolen, and then it's created a hardship for them. Well, then we asked them, did you change your password? Did you change your PIN number?
Have you ever changed your password or your PIN number?
I have not, and that's actually something I'll consider now.
No, but that's a good idea.
I only change my PIN number when they make me.
That is a good idea. I should change my password probably.
I'm gonna go do that now. I should do that. I haven't changed my PIN number since I got a card, which is around 2012.
I did immediately change all my passwords.
What else do we as a society need to be doing to force action on people and have people take action to better protect their identities?
That really comes down to the challenge we've had in the industry is really about communicating impact. is the impact it has to people, and what's enough impact for people to change their behavior. If, for example, all of a sudden you couldn't get insurance until you change your PIN number, then people would actually change their PIN number, because it means they're losing access to something because they're not taking accountability and responsibility to actually make the effort to change. If we focus too much on the companies rather than the actually people who is really at the bottom of these big breaches, so the news should actually really, I think, really focus in those who do get their identity stolen, rather than focusing at the CEO of a company who was actually trying to keep it secure. We should really focus and actually raise the importance and the visibility and transparency of the real victims, who are the people who get their data stolen. And then one of the basic practices, at some practices that I have at my own home, is that when you're not using something, turn it off.